What's up, heathens? Today we have an interview with Rockabye Rose on Twitter. If you don't know who Jenn is, she was a Mormon to begin with, and then she switched to being a Muslim, and then she came out of it an atheist. It was a very interesting talk, but it was about 2 hours long that I had a talk with her. So I'm going to be breaking this up into topic segments, which is what I did with the Dan Arl interview. And so, if you do indeed like this video, please show me some support and like it, as well as leave a comment down below. I hope you enjoy it, and I will see y'all later. All right, hello everybody. I am John Gleason, the Godless engineer, and welcome to another interview. Today we have Jenn. She's known as Skepo in the community. She has a Twitter as well as she's on YouTube. And I think I actually got to you via your YouTube stuff. I've been watching a few of your videos, and when I realized that you were an ex-Muslim, I was like, I've got to get an interview with her. So I'm really glad that you're able to give me this interview.
Aw, thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Well, as we all know, you are an ex-Muslim, but let's go back in time a little bit and let's try to look at, what was it like for you growing up as a Muslim? I'm assuming that you grew up as a Muslim, right?
No.
No?
I grew up Mormon. See, my story is crazy. I was born in the Mormon church, and my family goes back to the beginnings of the Mormon church. And I converted when I was, I think 18, 19, around there, to Islam. So I had lived around Muslims because I had family that were from Libya and Egypt, and I traveled over there with them and things, but I wasn't. We were very Mormon, very, very Mormon. So you don't meet very many Mormon Muslims.
No, no, you don't. That makes it particularly easy. So, growing up as a Mormon, I mean, like, were you pretty heavily involved in the church? Were you not so involved? I
Yeah,
mean,
no, I was devout, very devout. My family, actually, my parents, my mom left when I was 8, so I didn't have a mom growing up, and my dad had a girlfriend. He wasn't a very good dad, but he moved out when I was 13 and moved in with his woman and left me and my brothers on our own in a house, a bunch of teenagers in a house. It was good fun, but I actually got more religious. I took myself to church when my family wasn't going to church, and so I was very, very devout. But my family, they call them Jack Mormons. They're of the faith, but they're not very good Mormons. They call them Jack Mormons. So all of my father's siblings and other family were really, really good devout Mormons, and we were the example of how not to be. But I was very devout, so yeah.
okay. So, I'm assuming, like, I don't know if Mormons have like youth groups. Like, did you like lead a youth group, or were you just sort of just really devout in the faith?
No, Mormons, they control every aspect of your life. Like, you have seminary in the mornings with the rest of the teenagers. You get up before school and you go to class. And then, so even before zero period, you would have seminary. And on Sundays, you had your mutual. It was youth organization. And then we had activities like twice a week. And then activities with the missionaries as well. So they kept the youth very busy so that you didn't have a chance to research or sin or anything.
Yeah, you can't be thinking them naughty thoughts now.
Right? Well, Mormons actually, from the age of 12, it's kind of creepy. But from the age of 12, you get brought into your bishop's office and questioned about sexuality, masturbation in detail. And it's every 6 months. And I think now, I think they got sued. So it's no longer like a closed room with just the older gentleman and say, as a 12-year-old girl, this guy's asking you really explicit questions of whether you touch yourself or not. It's a little creepy, but now they leave the door open, but they still do it. But when I was a kid, we weren't allowed to complain about it. Just one of those
Wow.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Mormons
that
are
would
very intrusive.
that would set off a lot of red flags for me. Like, hold on now, creepy old dude shutting the door, asking me about touching myself. I don't know if I want to be here right now.
Yeah, and if you admit, say, yeah, a lot of the times you would say, well, I did touch myself and I'm trying not to and I'm praying, the whole they'd give you guidance and stuff. But if you admitted to messing around with a boy, say, like I got caught having sex before marriage, a big, huge deal, right? So, but I had to give them explicit detail, what I did, how long it lasted, what positions, like no joke, explicit detail to the second. They wanted everything, and then they went to the man and asked him all his details as well. It's crazy.
Wow, me growing up, I didn't have like a lot of religious reasons for my parents to do that kind of stuff to me. But I mean, I went through some kind of stuff, but I mean, nowhere near on that level. I mean, that just sounds ridiculous to me.
Especially
But
now, thinking back. Oof.
yeah. Let's fast forward a little bit to when you left Mormonism. Like, what caused you to leave Mormonism?
I left for Islam. I left for love. I fell in love with a Muslim, and I started reading the Quran. I started going to classes. We knew each other about a year before we got married. But I studied actually started studying before we met. I lied. I'm such a liar. I remember I said I had the family that were Muslim. I had this fascination with Islam, and I had romanticized it in my head that it was this amazing faith, and it was lifting to women or uplifting for women, and you were protected and a princess. And I came from not having a mom. And older brothers that were quite abusive because I was the only girl out of 10 boys. So I was drawn towards Islam. So I started studying it probably for just a short amount of time before I met my ex. So they coincided. But he basically told me that he wouldn't marry me unless I converted. So I converted. But I didn't just say, oh, I'm a Muslim. I threw myself into it. I believed it. I knew that the Mormon church wasn't true because there's too much. I mean, come on. Anyone with two brain cells to rub together can look at that and say cult. I say that now.
Yeah.
So I knew that wasn't true. So there had to be something else. So I thought maybe Islam was it. And obviously that's not the case either. But that's how I got into it. I didn't take the decision lightly. I took my Shahada, which is what you say when you actually become a Muslim. I took that before we got married, and it was a really emotional thing for me. We had a big party. I immediately wore hijab. I continued in my classes. I learned how to say the prayers because speaking in Arabic is difficult, and learning the prayers, you have to do it 5 times a day. It's actually like 17 prayers a day. You do it 5 times a day, but there's a set number of prayers. And that's just the minimum. You do more than that. There's fard and sunnah. So the fard are the obligatory prayers, and then you have extra prayers called sunnah. You try to emulate the Prophet's life by doing more, basically. And so I threw myself into it, like, completely, and became kind of radicalized and extreme at the same time.
Oh, so you became part of the more radical version of Islam?
Yeah, over time. Well, I was in the UK, and I started studying with a group with the young Muslims, and they had some ties to some more radical groups. And my ex wasn't very extreme. He was pretty modern and moderate. He didn't even like it when I covered my head. I'm the one who said I wanted to cover my head. This was initially after a couple years of me kind of beating it into him that we weren't Muslim enough. Like, I'm the one who was like, nah, we're not living according to the Quran. This isn't, we're sinning. And I had him meet with this imam. When people talk about one imam being able to radicalize people, and I hear non-Muslims or say, no, that's impossible. It has to be something that's already innate in them, or yes, it's the religion, but it's that one imam that radicalized me, who in turn radicalized my ex. And we just we started the spiral into just becoming more and more extreme to the point that I went into a niqab. Like, I was covering my face. We were traveling the world. We got involved in some more so. I was giving birth and trying to go to nursing school at the same time, but he got into some pretty extreme activities, and so what I'm saying is it kind of took a life of its own. I started and I pushed him to be more religious, and then he kind of went crazy and he became a completely different person. I didn't know him. So it's possible, and it happens. And I hated Jews. I told my own gay brother I hoped he died. Not because I hated him for being gay, but because I was so terrified that he was going to be punished forever. It was better to die now than to continue living in sin. Mormons have the same kind of attitude, though, towards being unclean or losing your chastity. Like we were told growing up, it's better to come home, or better to die than without your virtue. So if you're going to be raped, lose your life. It's better. And so it wasn't like a big stretch from Mormonism to Islam kind of having the same kind of attitude,
Yeah, I guess that's, I don't know if you know, prior to the Orlando nightclub shooting, there was an imam, like earlier this year, that was visiting, speaking down there, that said that, the best thing that we could do for the homosexual community is to kill them. I mean, is that kind of the basis, like, of the thought process of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did a video about it. Killing with love, and I explained how you can. I mean, yes, being gay is in their eyes abhorrent and disgusting and immoral, and they don't understand how anyone could be like that. And so if you've grown up with that your whole life, and you're told that this is an abomination, right? But at the same time, as a Muslims, they kill, but they don't do it because they're inherently evil. And I don't know if that makes sense. Yes, it's evil acts, and yes, it seems like there's no morality behind it, but there actually is morality behind it in their eyes. Just like killing the gays, you're doing them a favor, and it is with love. So they're going to burn for eternity in hell forever. There's no rescue for them. So if you kill them, then there's a chance that they could be redeemed and forgiven. Does that make sense?
Well, I'm kind of curious as to how like how the shortened amount of time here on Earth means that they could be redeemed in heaven after they die.
Because the sins pile on each other. So say, you only have, it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. It doesn't make any sense at all. But in that mindset, it makes sense. Like, and that's how, okay. So my brother being gay, I had an issue with it when I was Mormon. I was taught that it's bad, but not to the point that, they want you to die. Just, they don't even believe that it's a thing. They do conversion therapy, where they would do electroshock therapy to convert the gays back to being hetero. So it made me so sad to think that my brother was committing homosexual acts. And a lot of these Muslims think that these people are gay, but they haven't actually acted on it, which is ridiculous. So they're trying to stop them from acting on it as well, or acting on it anymore. So if I could have stopped my brother from committing any more sin at that particular moment by killing him, then he would be fine. Like he would have a chance to be redeemed, and God would maybe forgive him because he didn't know what he was doing. But if I had told him at that moment, what you're doing is wrong, and in Islam it's wrong, and he continues to do it, the sin is even worse. So it's like you're just trying to save them and spare them, if that makes sense. It probably doesn't.
No, like from the perspective of a religious person, I guess I can understand how they would feel that way because I mean, you see that a lot with the more radical Christians too. I mean, they feel like killing them now is the best thing to do, and like the Westboro Baptist Church feels like they're showing love by protesting soldiers' funerals and telling homosexuals that they're going to be burning in hell forever and all this. Like they say that, oh no, this is us showing love. And so I kind of get where you're coming from on the Islamic side. It just seems like it seems like on the Islamic side they're more prone to like if you're brainwashed enough, it seems like you're more prone to actually act on that.
Yeah, the thing is, like the Bible, the difference between the Bible and the Quran, you have a lot of Christians comparing the two, and even the religions. And the difference is like Islam is it's a totalitarian religion. Like it is the law and it is the religion. There's no separation of the two, and it is a law book. It's like a car guidebook. It's how to fix your automobile. So you have set or prescribed punishments for things. And the Bible talks about violence as a story. It happened in a particular time period, in a particular place. Not that if this happens forever, this is what must happen from now on. So in the Quran, it talks about punishment for being gay and that they cannot be allowed to live. So as a Muslim, you take the Quran literally or you don't take it at all. A lot of people take the Bible literally, like the Westboro Baptist Church people, but the Bible doesn't say if this person's gay, murder them. It did at the time, but it's not like for forever. If this is this, then do this. So you can't use it as like a law book. Does that make sense?
Well,
like,
yeah, I get what you're saying, but I don't know. I guess I kind of disagree with the idea that it doesn't mean forever, because just because there's that curious mix of people using the Old Testament laws like now as justification for things, but then when the laws get uncomfortable for them with current societal norms, then they explain those away as it being cultural. So, like, with the killing of gays, there's actually Leviticus 20:13 that says that you need to kill gays, right?
right.
And a lot of people explain that away as it was like a cultural law, and I get that, but then you can't turn around and then use other laws like that were in the Old Testament. Like, so I mean, I guess I'm still confused on all of that because it just seems like hit or miss with those laws. And you do actually have pastors here that are advocating for the murder of gays because Leviticus 20:13.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So I mean, I guess I could see what you mean by that, but I just think that there's a lot less Christians nowadays that would say that the Old Testament laws apply, rather than with Islam. I think that there's a good majority of the Muslims that believe that those laws should apply, although albeit on varying different, I guess, like various levels of punishment, I guess, like ranging from the radicals to being death or whatnot, or the most extremes, most literal translations of it, to I guess the less extreme ones. That well, like for instance in the UK, they felt that Danish art cartoonists should have still been jailed for drawing Muhammad. So I guess those are the two. Instead of killing them or sending them to death, they just wanted them jailed. So I don't know if that makes sense.
You have, like, with the Bible, you have, well, Christianity's been neutered, obviously. With the Bible, you have the you have the New Testament, which is the kinder, hippier, gentler version of Christianity that came around, right? the only problem, like with Islam hasn't had a reformation, or maybe it actually did have a reformation. This is the Reformation, but it hasn't been neutered in any way except in the West. But it doesn't have anything. There is no hippy dippy peace love message from the Quran at all. There's none. It is only warmongering, and I get the whole end goal of Islam is to take over the world. That's it. There will never be peace on earth until every last person is dead or Muslim. I get where in Christianity there's parts of the Bible that say the same kind of thing, but without the vehemence and venom saying that your immortal soul rests on this fact or not. And I think it's just a matter of taking it literally. This is what I say to Muslims. I'm like, if you would stop taking the Quran literally, then you would be able to live in a Western, society without any issues, because Christians have been able to do it. And so I don't know if Muslims will ever be able to do that, because reading through the Quran, there is no way to take it anything but literally. And I think that's the big danger. But it's a matter of being, all Muslims think, every Muslim I've ever met will tell you homosexuality is a sin. It's wrong. And yes, it's to a degree, whatever the punishments they think should be prescribed. I thought that gay people should die. I wouldn't have done it myself, but if Allah willed it and somebody happened to murder them, if Allah didn't want them to die, then he wouldn't have let that person murder them. So but all Muslims believe some degree of that, and it's because there's no leeway with the Quran. So like you were saying, same thing with it's the same thing with apostasy, and they wouldn't themselves kill anybody, but they wouldn't be sad about it either. And it's all because of being neutered. It's all because of the laws, because there is a difference. There's a separation of church and state, and there is not the separation of church and state in Europe that there is here. And so you're finding more issues with terrorist attacks. They have Sharia courts in the UK where they're not supposed to here. Dearborn, Michigan has a couple, but they're not legally binding. And they say over in the UK that the Sharia courts aren't legally binding, but they do. They make them legally binding. So they've allowed them to not assimilate. And American Muslims are very different so different than Muslims over in Europe that have been for several generations been in the UK. In this country, especially, they assimilate much better. Not that there aren't issues. I kind of got off on a tangent, but if that kind of explains a little bit better them taking it literally, and I absolutely agree. There are parts of the Bible that say yes, kill the gays. But I guess have you read the Quran? Have you picked it up and read through it at all?